But yeah, look, a pre-game show here. Evening. It's good to see you. Good to meet you. First time chat. Hi. Yes. Hello. Not much. Doing a pre-game show here, which is what I do at the start of each stream, which is to kind of go over some stuff that I've been reading or looking at for the past week. Let's see. I've been continuing to go through Lone Wolf and Cub. Oh, there we go. There's this. It's a very, very heavily sliced up body, demonstrating the deftness of the antagonist of this issue, and it ends with a kind of a Zandatsu sort of Metal Gear Revengeance fight where they run past these Buddha statues and slice them in a demonstration of raw power and the purity of their blades until after they destroy 3 of these Buddha statues successively, then they attack each other, and it's fantastic. It's a really great set piece and a really great payoff, and that's one of the things I love about the way this series this goes. Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I'm glad that you stopped by, and I hope that this stream provides you something similar. I kind of take well, it's not exactly the same approach to the stuff on the YouTube videos, because those are very structured things, those are very planned, and this is a little more off the cuff, a little planned stuff. And Hobgoblin, thank you so much for the subscription. I really appreciate that, and it's fantastic to see you again. Feels like it's been forever. Glad to have caught you, and you have caught me at the pregame show of looking at this, which is quite a divisive little book. This is Class by Paul Fussell, which is probably about, I want to say 5, 6. Oh no, he didn't. In terms of just really painting whole groups of people with a very broad brush, depending on whether they are upper, middle, or lower class, which he somewhat insultingly calls proles. And this was written in 1983, and I'm not sure if prole had the in 1983, yeah, and I'm not 100% sure if this was intended to have that, Evening Space Hamlet, if that was intended to have that connotation. It's very interesting. He dislikes class in general, dislikes sort of like what it binds us to, and I'm going to get to that in a second as we look at some excerpts. But the way that he handles, the way that he insults each different class varies depending upon for a variety of factors. The lower classes, the proles as he calls them, are much more simultaneously more easily mocked. In fact, there are several very very unkind illustrations of those styles and fashions in this book, and the middle class seems to receive the brunt of his ire. He seems to like them the least. Mainly because he sees them as trying to be something neither one way or another, not really being one or the other, not really being higher, not really being lower, not really knowing who they are, and that's a big problem for him. MGS 4 strats on the hardest difficulty. Oh my gosh, do you know? I'm no longer doing Metal Gear videos, and Metal Gear Solid 4 in particular would take forever. There are so many different ways through those levels, so many different ways through those areas. I cannot imagine the kind of time that it would take to do something of that depth for that. So unfortunately, no, but I'm very glad to know that you like the other ones enough that you'd be interested to see that. Thank you. But yeah, so one of the things that is interesting about Fussell is he apparently part of his work, he has a gig of being a class advisor for people who make things and need to market things. So like if somebody is setting up a subdivision or something, he will be a counselor. He will advise them on how to class it up so the upper class or upper middle class would want to sort of live there. And so you kind of know where his money is coming from in terms of his business, and you kind of get a sense that might be conditioning who he sees as fairer game for more direct insult. But we'll take a look at that here. So I think that probably the best way to start off on this is to kind of look at the things that target me. This is great. It's fun. So we're going to start off with one of the most obvious. So here we go. This is the high prole fashion. Sometimes one sees suspenders worn over a t-shirt, the equivalent of socks worn with sandals. Oh man, right at the start. Let's see, what's our next one? Let's see. Since the upper orders possess archaism as their very own class principles, so yes, so the classy people like things of the past, and lower classes like things of the future. What can the lower orders do but fly to the new, not just to sparkling new garments, but to cameras and electronic apparatus and stereo sets and trick watches, electronic kitchens, and video games, which is where I am here. Thank you so much. I hope you stick around, and I hope you enjoy the Elden Ring stream if you do. Let's see the next. So we're looking at comic books here. Science and technology have never quite made it socially. Yeah, the well-tuned snoot indeed. Never made it socially, partly I suppose because excitement over them and the illusion of progress they propose as a prole characteristic. And yeah, this is clearly before, phones and the internet took over almost every tier of society and became, versions of those became class markers themselves. And so let's see. Oh yeah, and this was good. This was so good. I loved reading this. I had hoped I would see this when I got to the section on education. It is not enough to succeed. So he's talking here about schools and different qualities of educational institutions. It is not enough to succeed, says Gore Vidal. Others must fail. It is not enough that there be a Williams College. There must also be a University of Southern Mississippi to give it value so that both may play their parts in the great American class system of higher learning. And USM is exactly where I got my master's degree. It was great. I was really hoping that that would show up there, because it's got, well, I mean, two words there, Southern and Mississippi, which dropping down the ladder. So but yeah, but the thing is, it's like he is a little more subtle when he directs his attention otherwise. So he does direct his attention toward the upper class, but he does it in a way that is very evasive and that you do have to pay attention to catch. So he does spend, as you might understand here, he does spend some time talking about how great elite schools are. But then in a later chapter, in the chapter on language and how that divides us, he talks about the word prestigious. So let's read through this. This is good. The middle class is where you hear prestigious a lot, and to speculate about the reason it's replaced distinguished or noted or respected in the past 20 years is to do a bit of national soul searching. The implications of prestige, C. Wright Mills observes, are really pejorative. In its origins, it means dazzling the eye with conjuring tricks. And he goes on, in France, prestige carries an emotional association of fraudulence, of the art of illusion, or at least of something adventitious. The same in Italy and Germany. Only in the USA does the word carry any prestige, and looking back, I see that I've depended on prestige quite a lot when talking about high-class colleges. So, I mean, it's backhanded, it's subtle, it's delayed, but it's there. And so, and this sort of kid's gloves approach is how he treats upper class stuff in general. Probably one of the most damning things that he repeats is that there are no ideas among the upper classes, that their values are very superficial and not interested in investigation, and at the end of it, regardless of sort of painting everybody with a broad brush, the sad thing is that by the time one's an adult, these stigmata are virtually unalterable and ineffaceable. We're pretty well stuck for life for the class we're raised in, which suggests to him that regardless of where you are in this, what level of comfort or prestige you have, it's still not a good thing. And this is where Fussell gets interesting, and where it's a little more than just sort of a gossip rag shock. All right, the redeeming chapter is, what about us indeed? What class are we in, and what do we think about our entrapment there? And entrapment in class, regardless of how well off it places you, or how, what kind of position it gives you, that's really sort of where Fussell is aiming. And his answer is somewhat along the lines of a bohemian lifestyle. It's interesting. X people are better. So X class is the group of people that he sees are being able to get out of this. They are better conceived as belonging to a category than a class, because you are not born an X person as you are born and reared a prole or a middle. You become an X person, or to put it more bluntly, you earn X personhood by a strenuous effort of discovery in which curiosity and originality are indispensable. And in discovering that you can become an X person, you find the only escape from class. And this is where I think Fussell is really interesting in a way that is much more sympathetic than the sort of very invective, very, very sensationalist sort of description of everybody goes, is he's really identifying all of these classes by the things that they purchase, the outward symbols that they adopt to indicate their aesthetic. And that people would group themselves by aesthetics, and that their aesthetics could be determined by the things that they buy, by the things that they choose to keep around, and their relationship to money is, it seems particularly onerous to him. He doesn't like it. And so it's basically, there is no winning in this, even if you are technically winning the status game by being higher up. And so defining yourself by the way that you engage things, whether, to engage things with a spirit of curiosity, discovery, openness, and sort of creation, these are the ways that you get around that, or get out of that. Let's see, I think there's one more here. Yeah, they constitute something like a classless class. They occupy the one social place in the USA where the ethic of buying and selling is not all powerful. Impelled by insolence, intelligence, irony, and spirit, X people have escaped out the back doors of those theaters of class which enclose others. And yeah, now this is extremely interesting, both for what it is for its times. I think it does still say something now that is valuable, which is that defining oneself by the sort of by the symbols and the markers that you can accrue just by purchasing them, or by that sort of shared aesthetic. Defining yourself by that alone is very superficial and does not sort of dignify you. Being able to find self-expression, self-discovery, a way of appearing as an individual, even though you also contain those sort of class markers, as we all do, is a way of sort of living a better life. And I think Fussell's got something on that point. He does throw a lot of mud to get there, though. So if you happen to read this, just sort of be prepared for that. I made sure to lead with the mud that lands most firmly on my own face. So, yeah, be warned that if you go into it, there's some waiting for you too. And the reason why this interested me, I don't know if I have it, yeah, I think I have it here, is, and this actually relates to, interestingly enough, the viewer who mentioned my videos, he wrote this book, Poetic Meter and Poetic Form. I'm going to show there. And this book is, this has informed a great deal of how I read and understand poetry, and in turn, this is actually a very big key to the way that I interpret and understand video games as a critic. And so Fussell is very close to my DNA as a thinker and as a critic, and as just in terms of the values that I parse things through. And so I'm interested in anything that he has to write. And it's interesting that I can engage this critically and get much more from it on the level that it's delivering it. This class requires a little bit of appreciation of irony, and sort of you have to kind of work around what he says to get at it, to get at what I think is valuable about it. But yeah, with that in mind, we will jump into our high prole entertainment, the video game, and look at Elden Ring. The book is, it's very simply named Poetic Meter and Poetic Form. This is, let's see. Yeah, he gets into scansion. I think the thing that I think is most valuable about this is he demonstrates how the way a poem is shaped relates to what it is saying. So in other words, a poem is not just the words on the page. The poem is also the shape that the words take, and how they rhyme, how they alliterate, how they relate to each other visually. All these things have a cumulative effect in terms of how it is valuable. No, this is a separate book. No, that would definitely be a sort of like right angle departure, wouldn't it? But yeah, yeah, it gets a little technical in terms of some of the sort of the metrical jargon, but he also takes the moment to define what the jargon is, so you're not sort of left scratching your head thinking that you should have read another book in preparation for reading this, which is, again, another reason that I like this so much. So, but that in mind, oh shoot, I forgot my headphones. So give me 1 second, I'm going to grab those and pop back up here.